Good afternoon, this is Peter Towers from ESS BIZTOOLS. Welcome to this webinar on ESS BIZGRANTS. I hope wherever you are around Australia you've had a good weekend and have started off in a great week. Thank you for participating in this webinar today. There's a few people still haven't registered. We'll just give them half a minute and then we'll get underway. If you have any questions on any aspect of grants or ESS BIZGRANTS that we're going to talk to you about today, please don't hesitate to type in a question, and in webinar terminology, raise your hand and I will answer your questions later in the webinar. So let's get started. First of all, we're giving you basically a news update because the government last week announced some changes to the business evaluation and business growth grants. This segment of grants are part of the infrastructure processes grants. These grants started in July and already the government's made some changes. Makes life very difficult for accountants and advisors and people who prepare this sort of material like us. But in their wisdom, the government has decided to make some changes, so defence industries have been withdrawn. We were going to talk about some of these today, so it's just an update to some of the changes. Energy, water and waste management have withdrawn. The tourism sector, which is going to be felt in a lot of businesses around Australia, has been withdrawn, and also creative industries. And under the definition of medical technologies and pharmaceuticals, medical practices and hospitals have been removed from the definition. So there's some significant changes there that will definitely affect a number of businesses around Australia and a number of accounting firms who I know have been getting ready to lodge applications. Some of them have already lodged applications under these areas, and I'm told that those applications will be honoured as long as the applicant meets all the other requirements. But unfortunately, those areas are no longer available for any new applications. And the government also appears to have changed the definition of remote enterprises, even though they haven't spelled it out as clearly as what we're saying to you now. But remote enterprises, up until last week, for this grant and for its predecessor, the Enterprise Assistance Program, could operate in any type of entity. Well, that's now been changed. They must be the same as all of the others for the business improvement or the business growth grant, which must be a company or a corporate trustee. And prior to this, the remote locations could be any type of business. They're now only for the defined industries. And the only benefit that a remote business now gets is that their turnover is only a sum of $750,000. So if any of you have got clients in remote locations and you'd heard that any type of business could apply operating in any sort of structure, I'm sorry, the rules got changed last week. Okay, so the redefined eligible industries for the business evaluation and business growth grants are listed on the screen there now for you. There is quite an amount of detail in the actual definitions as to what is meant by each of these categories. But we have advanced manufacturing, food and agri-businesses, but not including the growing of food or crops or livestock or fishing. It's the manufacturing side of the food and agri-business, which is causing a few concerns around the countryside. Medical technologies and pharmaceuticals, but excluding medical practices and pharmacies. whereas up until last week they were included in the definition. Mining equipment, technology and services. This is a new heading, but these types of businesses were always able to gain access. And the oil, gas and energy resources, which includes coal mining, are part of the eligible industries. The government's then introduced this new concept called enabling technology services, and this basically says that if any businesses operating in these areas, freight and logistics, infrastructure related construction, information and communications technology and professional services, and professional services is limited to scientific and technical services and computer system design and related services, as well as scientific research, architecture, engineering and technical services and advertising services. So the definition is not what a lot of people think professional services might mean. The government has really narrowed that down to only be those ones that I just mentioned to you. Now, if you've got clients in any of these industries and they are in any way assisting businesses in these industries, advanced manufacturing, food and agribusiness, medical technologies, mining equipment, and oil, gas and energy resources, then they could be eligible applicants for the Business Improvement Grant. So that slide's then confirming what I've just said, if the services relate to or have the skills capability to assist in those other areas. So that's an update of the changes that the government announced last week, and it will have some bearing on what we're going to talk to you about today. What I've now gone on to is the ESS BIZGRANTS website. This is the home page, so you can read some information on ESS BIZGRANTS. There's a testimonial there on the right-hand side from David Smith, the former president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants in Australia and the CEO, Managing Director of Smith Inc. 2020. David was one of the instigators behind the development of this product because he discovered that many small businesses were complaining to him when he was undertaking due diligence reviews of accountancy businesses that had indicated an interest in being acquired by one of the accounting aggregators, that the complaint from small businesses was that they were not being kept up to date with available grants by their accountants. They were concerned that their competitors were gaining grants. So David suggested to me that we should develop a special product, which is the one we're showing you today. This is our new version. It's only been released for the last 4 weeks, and we hope that this will satisfy your requirements for a product which will enable accountants to identify government grants that might be suitable for individual clients without having to be experts on the individual grants, because that was the type of definition that David Smith gave me, that what he thought we should be trying to abide by. So there's a fair bit of information there on the home page. It does indicate we can have a free trial, but we'll come back to that later. There is a case study which you can look at now, if you wish, or not now, but after you finish this webinar. There's a case study there that works you through and explains how ESS BIZGRANTS operates. There's some testimonials, there's some news, which various articles and podcasts and blog articles which we've released over the period, which you might find interesting. So what we'll do is we'll log into the site. I've already logged in, so we've gone straight to it. There is a more detailed explanation in the members login area of actually utilizing the system, which is on the screen now, which takes you through the process. But I'm going to go one better than that, I hope. I'm going to actually show you an application for a client. So these other ones here are just various trials that we've conducted in the past. So when we start, we need to put in a business name. We might just call this XYZ Manufacturing Company. Now, you then have a choice as to, the type of entity that the business is operating through. The default item is company, because company is the most favoured entity for government bureaucrats in planning grants. But there are other entities that might be eligible for some grants. But the most popular entity from a government department's point of view when they plan grants is a company. So you just need to go through that list, I'll bring it back up, and identify what type of entity that this client is. So I've said they're a company. You then ask the question, does the business export products or services? We'll say yes, this is a manufacturing company, and in the guidelines I've got here, or the preamble I wrote for myself, it's a pharmaceutical manufacturing company, and they are doing some exports. So we'll tick yes. They are importing some products, so we'll tick yes. And both of those questions are going to be able to link us to perhaps some grants that might be available for exporters and importers. Grants require details of number of employees. Not all grants want to know the number of employees, but a significant number of them do. This business has got 25 employees, so we're going to click on 20 to 200. And those number categories are all geared to various grant requirements. Do you have an ABN? We're answering yes, because this program is based on grants for small, medium enterprises, and the government won't deal with you unless you have an ABN. How many years have you been operating? Again, this varies. For some grants and incentives, there's no requirement to have been in business for any period of time. Research and development tax deduction comes to mind there. There's no period of time. But other grants, like the one we referred to at the beginning, the Business Growth Grant, has a 3-year requirement that the business has to be operating. And many of the state and territory governments have a period of operational requirements. People ring me from time to time and ask me what grants are available for startups. And my answer is very few these days. 5, 7 years ago, there used to be a lot more, but there's not many these days. The main ones are research and development, and we anticipate the new commercialisation ready grant, which is another grant under the Entrepreneurs Infrastructure Program, which is supposed to commence later this year. Originally, the government said November. I noticed the website of the government is now saying later in 2014. So there's obviously a few issues there. So we're going to say this business has been in business for 12 years, so it's over 3 years. That's all we need to put in there. The next question we need, because turnover levels come into a lot of the grant considerations in that startup review that I did on the changes to the Business Growth Grant. there was a turnover requirement for those businesses of $1.5 million, although if the business is located in a remote or very remote location, and that's probably about 90% of the Australian land mass, the turnover only needs to be $750,000. Now this business has got a turnover of $6 million, so they're in the $1.5 to $2 million category. So that's what we're going to click. Are you registered for GST? It's a bit like the ABN question. If you don't answer yes, you won't get a grant, because these grants that are targeted at small medium enterprises are all targeted on the basis that the business is up and open and ready for business. Are you tax exempt? If you answer yes, you won't get a grant, because this is not for tax exempt businesses. And are you involved in research and development? We're going to answer yes, because this business does undertake research and development. You don't really need to know how much at this stage. So we'll click save for that information. Now you can re-edit that at any time if you wish. We need an address, and I did write one down before. I hope this is a fictitious address, but we're going to put it in. Oh, we've got a few typos there, but please forgive me. We might say this is from Geelong. Obviously, I've got caps on by the looks. And obviously that's in Vic, and the code is 3220. So we'll save that. We can insert additional business premises if your client's got them. You can then look at the details, and Geelong's is part of the major cities of Australia. There's virtually no grants left under those definitions other than in the medical industry. There's still a few there. So we're trying to cover all industries in the information we're collecting in this enormous database, which is part of ESS BIZGRANTS. Now the interesting side of things now is we can obviously check the details, we can check the address, we can check the financial information, and then we come to the business industry code. Now this is crucial in trying to identify grants that might apply to this particular business. So what you can do is you can enter a word out of the business's description that you know about, or if you know the industry code, the Australian Taxation Office Business Industry Code, which is based on the Australian New Zealand industry codes, you can insert the code. So what we'll do for the first part of it is insert I hope I'm spelling this right. I don't think I spelled it right just a minute. I don't think I've typed that in right, but what we might just go through is to check the industry codes. In the industry code, you can go on to use these if you wish. As you're probably aware, they're in alphabetical index, and then they're in index of industries. that you can utilize to decide which is the numbers that you wish to insert. So I'm going to go back and make sure I spell this the right way this time. Well, we don't seem to be having problems there. I can't get that to work. I don't know what's wrong. Whenever you want a computer to play up, have a webinar on. I've already picked out the number of pharmaceutical preparation in doing some pre-planning on this. I'm going to put the number in and show you how that works. We can add that. And this is a pharmaceutical preparation manufacturing company, which for some reason didn't come up there when I put pharmaceutical in. Did earlier today, so computers being computers. But the numbers in, we've got it there. If you clicked on that red dot with the cross through it, we would remove it and you could put another type of industry in. We can then go to search grants, and the system will then search the available grants that are available for this manufacturing company. So it's telling us that there's 12 grants that might be suitable for this particular business. So you can see there's a mixture of Australian government and Victorian government grants that are available that meet the criteria for this particular client. To get a better understanding of what's included under any grant, you can read this summary. And if you want to check the funding, there it is. This is the apprenticeship incentive that's available for disabled persons or for the employers of disabled persons. That grant is available for any type of business operation. We can then go to the application toolkit, and this gives us the opportunity of checking a paper that we have prepared as to how the apprenticeship grant incentive operates. So there's the paper, which is part of ESS BIZTOOLS. It's included within this product. And it gives you a rundown of how the government's apprenticeship program operates. So you could check that out so you've got a better understanding. We then go, we've been to the toolkit. We then go to the additional criteria. Now, what we've tried to do out of that initial information that was put into the system is to try to narrow down who might be eligible for a grant. This is further narrowing down. So the question is, are you proposing to employ an apprentice who has a disability who will undertake a certificate to a higher level qualification? If we answer yes, the system immediately brings up apply now. So if we go on to apply now, that URL will take you to the government department's website, which will give you full details of the organisations around Australia that you can discuss employing apprentices with. If we close that now, the system is then going to update whether you might be eligible for that grant we've just looked at. The system's now telling us we've got 11 grants in pending. If we go to potentially eligible, we have that one there from the apprenticeship incentive. If we go back to pending, we might skip the next apprenticeship, which is school-based apprentice. The Australian Bureau of Statistics is some free information. We then go to the business growth grant, which was the one I was talking about before. Now, quite frankly, when we put in the new criteria, which we're in the process of doing now, this grant will come up as being eligible under the medical technologies and pharmaceuticals. But this business is also at this stage eligible under manufacturing. Now, none of these slides have been changed yet because there's a fair bit of work every time the government changes a grant, and we're in the middle of doing it at present. But this business could be eligible under either advanced manufacturing or medical technologies and pharmaceuticals. It doesn't matter. They only get one grant. You can't double up. But the rest of this is still the same. So this is giving you some background as to what that grant's all about, and it also summarises the type of work that might be able to be done to satisfy the grant requirements. A significant amount of that work can be done by accountancy businesses. I've done market research, business plans, human resources systems, debtors analysis, marketing, chaired a management committee for 6 months, and a few other things, all under the predecessor to this grant, the Enterprise Connect grant. If you want to look at the funding, you can go onto it, and there's the funding. It's up to $20,000 on a 50% basis. If we go to the application toolkit, you can read a paper on the business growth grants, so that you've got a better understanding of how this particular grant operates. Not to make you an expert as such, but to enable you to be able to answer some questions from clients. Now, this paper is under change. It will be a different paper on our site by tomorrow, because it will be changed to reflect those adjustments and changes that the government announced last week that I was talking about at the beginning. But this is the type of material we include in the paper, so that an applicant can get information from their accountant as to how the system works. But as I said before, creative industries and tourism sector have now been withdrawn, and so has defence industry. So there's been some changes that affect a few things. And we have a paper then on each of those individual grants. So this is where we've had to do a fair bit of work now on changing things again, because we have then details of what was manufacturing. That's all been changed in the new definitions. So by tomorrow we'll have new material on our site. But we didn't know these changes were going to come when we scheduled this webinar. Okay, if we want to go to additional criteria, we can. We're interested. So there's a few more questions on this one. Is the applicant solvent? The government wants to make sure that the applicant's solvent, and basically their definition is they can pay their debts as they come due. Has the business been operating under an approved structure for 3 years? The applicant has to be a company, but if the same people have been in the business as partners for 2.5 years and then they incorporated into a company, that is sufficient for this purpose. And has the company ever received a business growth grant or a tailored advisory services grant under the Enterprise Connect program before? Now, I'm going to answer yes to that. If I answer yes, what it has done is put a cross after no, and it hasn't given me the opportunity of applying now. And if we close, what that will do is when the grant is updated onto its eligibility, it is going to state that we're not eligible for that grant. So we'll just go and have a look. Potentially ineligible, we got the business growth grant. Now you might say, oh, why? So we'll click back on and we'll say, no, we want to have another look at that. So we'll go back to the additional criteria and we'll answer yes, yes, but we'll change that one to no. So it's immediately got rid of that cross, and it's also given us the apply now, and that is the URL for the government department that is controlling these grants. So if we then close and update again, it will get rid of that entry under potentially ineligible, and we'll place the grant under the potentially eligible category. So we'll just check it. So potentially eligible is now back to 0, and potentially eligible is there for 2 grants. We'll just run through another one. We might just click through some of these. This client's potentially eligible for the Export Market Development Grant. We said they were exporters, so let's go to there. There's a summary on the Export Market Development Grant. The funding is up to $150,000 on a 50% basis, but there's all sorts of sub-amounts in the category. So if we would like to have a look at the paper, here's a paper on the Export Market Development Grant that you can read, so you can print a copy of that up for your client if you wish, so they can understand how this grant operates. There's also a list of the detailed expenses that can be claimed. They vary. There are all sorts of sub-limits. Overseas representation, the maximum claim can be up to 200 grand, which means that you could claim $100,000. So there's a fair bit of information there as to what you can claim. And we might now go to the additional criteria. Have you spent or seek to spend, create demand to export a product? Remember, you don't have to actually export. It could be you are planning to export. If you're claiming overseas representation or marketing expenses, have you maintained documentary evidence that shows the function? We'll say yes. If you're claiming expenses under marketing visits, have you kept full records? We say yes. If you've claimed expenditure for 2 export years, have you discussed it with Austrade? And we'll say yes. Will the business spend more than $20,000 aggregate in the 13-14 year, not including New Zealand, North Korea or Iran? New Zealand because we treat them as a state, North Korea and Iran for obvious other reasons. However, if it's a first-time claimant, 2 years can be joined together, 2 consecutive years, so you could have the 13 and the 14 fiscal years joined together to get over the $20,000 in eligible expenditure. So let's say they had $14,000 in 1 year and $19,000 in the second year. That's $33,000. They could put a claim in. They've spent an extra $13,000, so 50% of that, $6,500 would be the claim they could make. So we'll say yes. You've been told by your client that they spent about $60,000, or you can see the client spent that amount by going through their records. And is the business the principal for the export? So if we say yes for that, we then get the apply now. This will take us to the Austrade website in this case, if you wanted to go there. So you could look at the application form. Just remember with this one, the applications have to be lodged by the 1st of December. It's the last business day in November, and this year it's the 1st of December is the day that's been set. So we've done that. You can keep on going through the rest of them, but let's go to potentially eligible. We have 3 grants, and we could now have a look at the report. So the system's now going to produce a report for XYZ Manufacturing. It has your name there, not ESS BIZTOOLS. Has the date. It gives a synopsis of the grants that have been identified that your client might be eligible for. And they can see what the grant amount is. There's a disclaimer at the bottom which basically says that whilst all care has been taken, the applicant still has to put an application in and has to satisfy the government department that they have got the ability to follow through on the grant, and hopefully they haven't got a black mark against them within a government department, because that can be difficult to get around. And there's the details of the Export Market Development Grant. So that's the report that you could then submit to your client when they've come in for a review and have a discussion with them. Our suggestion is at this time of the year, you should be using this system, ESS BIZGRANTS, as you complete a client's annual financial accounts and income tax return. Put the data in. Will only take a few minutes to put in the basic data, which any member of your team should be able to insert. Then someone with a bit more knowledge and experience with the client, maybe a senior accountant, manager, or the partner, probably needs to go through and answer the questions so that when your client comes in, you can be very proactive and say, we have gone through and identified these grants that we believe you could be eligible to apply for. Do you wish us to proceed with preparing the applications? You could indicate to them that you're interested in doing some of the work and that you will give them a proposal for that, and also indicate to them that this will be charged to them as a separate work assignment basis, and that would allow you to start processing government grants on a very proactive manner, so that the client doesn't come to you and say he's heard at the club on Friday night or the pub or somewhere that one of these competitors has got a government grant and why hasn't he got one, which is one of the common comments we get back from accountants. So that's a summary of how ESS BIZGRANTS operates. I'm just checking to see if we have any questions. We don't appear to have any. If you think of some questions later on, please let me know. Now what we're now going to do is just go back to the beginning where we could start a free trial. So we're going back out of our site now, and we might just go back one page. Go to pricing. The pricing is obviously for a free trial. It is free, so it says 0. You can get 2 weeks trial. We'll click the sign up for that in a moment. Our subscriptions are $450 plus GST for 12 months, 24/7 access to this site. You can have as many authors as you like. We're using cloud technology. You can use your client's name or a code number for them that you would allocate. You can leave the information in the system so that the following year all you have to do is to update it, because remember, there are always changes happening in government grants, as I hope I've explained to you at the beginning of this webinar, so you can monitor them. Or you can pay monthly if you like. The subscription is $43 per month plus GST. So if we go to sign up, you need to enter some information as to who you are, and you then click on that you're going to undertake the 2-week free trial. The trial is for you to trial 2 or 3 of your clients so you see how the system works, and then hopefully you will agree to become a subscriber to ESS BIZGRANTS. So that's how our system operates. I'd be quite happy to receive any questions that might occur to you later on. Just send us an email, peter@essbiztools.com.au. In a bit over 2 weeks' time, we'll be contacting you to see how you went with your trial, so please log on and avail yourself of the free trial. And I hope that you will be impressed by how the system works, so that you will be able to start using this system to assist your clients to identify grants. Thank you very much for participating in this webinar today. Have a great day, and I look forward to talking to you at some future date. Thank you.